Hey guys, Nikki here. Before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know a couple things ahead of time. I have been having one of those weeks where I am burning every candle at every end, so I did not have time to go through and write an entire new episode. I do have an episode that I recorded quite a long time back that I will be using on what my work is like as an end-of-life doula. I hope you enjoy it. One point of clarification. At one point in the episode, I'm referencing human composting and that there is only one place where it is legal and can be done. And that has changed. That is very different now. It is legal in 6 states. So there are new facilities opening up all the time for composting, just so you know. Okay, and with that, on to the episode. Hello, and welcome to Good Grief, a podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief through compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And thank you so much for tuning into my show today. So I'm going to change gears a little bit today and move slightly away from grief, which I know is the topic. But so in the intro of my podcast, every single episode, I mention that I'm an end-of-life doula. And I thought I might just take a break here and discuss what an end-of-life doula is. In case anybody out there listening is going, she keeps saying this end-of-life doula thing. What in God's name is that? So, in case you haven't heard of an end-of-life doula, I'm going to discuss it for you. It's one of those things that it's becoming slightly more prevalent in the media now. So, more and more people are hearing about us, or I notice a lot of my friends who know that I've done this are now sending me articles like, look, I saw this. It was in the news today. It was on this website. It was in this podcast. It was, in this YouTube video, whatever. Like, it's more and more people are starting to learn what an end-of-life doula is. So I'm going to educate you a little bit as well. So I received my training through INELDA, which is the International End-of-Life Doula Association, just for a little background on me, which I believe I mentioned in my intro episode. But my super short one-sentence way to explain this to most people is how most people have heard of a birth doula. I think I have not met somebody who doesn't know what a birth doula is. And just as a birth doula helps usher life into the world, my job is to help usher life out of the world. So that's my super short one sentence version, but we'll go into some more detail because what does that mean to usher life out of the world, right? But to get into just a little bit more detail as to what an end-of-life doula is, we guide a person who is transitioning to death as well as their loved ones through the process, right? My husband put it very succinctly to those theater folks listening out there. He calls me a stage manager for death. So there's any one of a million things I can do. And yes, I could give you my 30-second elevator pitch, but this is a podcast. I've got more time. So I'm going to take more time to explain things a little better to you. I can provide emotional, spiritual, physical support to everybody involved in the death of someone. So I work mostly with the dying person, but I also work with their family and or loved ones, whoever is around them at the time of their, transition out of life. Basically, depending on who hires me, I never make anybody my priority. That's my own ethics, is nobody involved is prioritized except the dying person. Now, if somebody is dying and say their daughter hires me, their daughter is the client. They might be the one that signs the contract if their parent is not able to, if they're past the point of being able to consent, to sign anything, things like that. Their daughter's still my client, but my priority is still going to be the dying person. And that's all stated in my contract and agreement paperwork. And if for some reason the person does not agree to that, the person that is hiring me, then at that point I would have to find another doula to them. So I want to respect the dying person because that's kind of the point of my job. So anyway, to get away from all that type of stuff and get more into the nitty-gritty of what it is I do, when I'm working with the dying person, there's multiple things we can do together. But my main priorities and this is me as a doula, other doulas might work differently, but my priorities is to, number one, give them the death that they want and deserve and need. And number two, make sure that they leave this world fully believing that their life had value and meaning. Because I can't think of anything more painful than dying alone and dying feeling like your life had no purpose, right? So I will spend time working with them and going over their life experiences. It can happen in one afternoon. It can happen in an hour-long conversation. It could take several visits. Obviously every death is different and every dying person is different. But I'll work with them to discover what they've accomplished in their life and what they feel has had value and how they've affected the world around them, and help lead them to finding where their life meaning was, so that they can leave this world knowing that they had an impact and that their life did, in fact, have a purpose and meaning, right? And the other thing is, like I said, to give them the death that they want. So depending on the circumstances of what their illness is or what they're dying from, I want to make sure that if they get to a point where they are non-communicative, that I can still uphold their desires as far as who's visiting them, who's not visiting them, whether or not physical contact is allowed. Have them, and we usually write all this stuff out ahead of time so that we have a plan and it's in writing so that nothing can, go awry from that. So I can say, this is what we planned, this is what they wanted. But as far as, do they want music playing? Do they want light in the room? Do they want it dark? Do they want a candle lit? Do they want some kind of scent that they prefer? Do they want poems read? And we can also come up with rituals. And this is where a lot of culture and religious beliefs might come into play. If they have a specific ritual that they want performed as they're dying or right after they have passed, right after they've breathed their final breaths, is there some kind of ritual they want performed, something that is meaningful to them? So I make sure that that's taken care of as well. Try to plan out, and of course, make plans. God laughs. We all know that. So we plan out everything as best we can. Some things definitely go awry, right? That's something that happens. As far as the family's concerned, some things I can do with them. I obviously provide emotional support and physical support as far as if they have a family member or loved one that is providing care, cleaning, dressing any wounds, just any type of physical. The only things I can't do are anything like nursing related because I'm not a nurse. So I can't administer medications. I can't, suture anything or, do any type of nursing activities because I don't have that skill set and I don't have that education. So that also is all spelled out ahead of time. So nobody's expecting that of me. A lot of times I would be working in tandem with hospice. So I can help work with the hospice to get more medications they might need, more pain relief, things like that. But I can't administer any of these things, nor do I want to. Anyway, so back to the families, giving caregiver respite and providing them emotional support as well. Just like I spend time with the dying person to help them find a meaning to their life, I might work with the family of the loved ones to come up with some kind of a legacy, something they might want to have, either be it a physical thing or a non-physical thing, to remember their loved one by. Help them put together a video, a scrapbook, a box with personal items filled with letters. I mean, sky's the limit. Whatever the family would like to do to have, be it, like I said, a physical item or even a ritual, maybe something they do once a year. Maybe they plan, maybe their loved one is an avid hiker like myself. So once a year they plan a 2-mile hike where everybody in the family gets together and they go on a hike on this person's favorite trail, something like that. I can help them come up with those ideas. And then once their loved one has passed, as I mentioned, I can help with any rituals that they might want performed, but I can also help with early reprocessing of grief. So watching somebody die is and can be a very traumatic experience. It could be very simple and peaceful at times, but other times it can be very disturbing. I think we're all well aware sometimes really, let's just say it, disgusting things happen to our bodies as we're dying, right? And witnessing that can be really stressful for people, especially if it would appear their loved one might be suffering or gasping for air, things like that. Witnessing those type of things can be very traumatic and very painful for someone, especially if they've never witnessed it before. So I can kind of help them reprocess that, work through it, face it, talk about it, give them a safe space to discuss it because I don't know, if I watch something mildly traumatic with, my mother passing away, say for an example, I probably wouldn't go to my coworker and talk all about that because my coworker's not going to want to hear that, right? That would feel a little awkward. But I can be a safe space for them to discuss and kind of process through what they saw, what they witnessed, and how they're feeling about it. My services tend to continue on past the death with the family and the loved ones for an agreed upon amount of time, 1 visit, 2 visits, 3 visits afterwards, just to make sure things are being taken care of, but also make sure everybody's okay. See where everybody's feeling. Dealing with death and watching somebody die, especially someone you're very close with, is already going to be emotionally draining and exhausting and a little bit traumatic for the family. And there's so much going on when somebody's dying, right? So if I can at least take away some of the grunt work so that the family can just focus on spending time with their loved one while they're still here, then that's the most beautiful thing I can provide for the family. Just letting them be, letting them spend their last moments together and not have to worry about all the finicky little things. So that's where I work with the family. So other things I have and can help with, outside of just actually getting through the dying process, I've actually helped out some much younger people who just want to have everything in order before they pass, even if they're in their 30s and they're not planning on passing for a very long time. They're not perfectly healthy, not sick. I can just help them get their advanced directive paperwork together. I can go over options with them for their final will as to what they would like done with their remains, because there's getting to be more and more options available now besides your, typical cremation and or burial. Then there's different types of burials that are available. There's green burials, there's conservation grounds, there's, a myriad of different options. So I can help them discover some of these new options. And things change. I'm really hoping that composting becomes more readily available. It's available right now in one place, as far as I know, just one center in the United States. And I don't know that they'll take anybody from outside their area. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that just yet, but I'm kind of hoping that's something that's a little more available, so that my remains can not just be disposed of, but can maybe cause a little bit of good, kind of give back to the universe in some way, shape, or form. Plus, I'm an eco-friendly nerd, so I want to do the most eco-friendly thing I possibly can. Leave the smallest footprint. Anyway, so yeah, I can work with people much younger than that. Or if there are folks that are of, middle age or a little bit beyond and they have adult children, they just want to start the conversation with their adult children of, look, I'm fine now, but I am going to die one day. We need to figure out how we want to handle this. Do you want to take care of me? Do you want me to, be in a hospital? Do you want me to... And I would like, to be at home as much as possible. So I want to make sure that you know that. And we have this money set aside so that you can hire in-home care, things like that. And some people are afraid to talk about it. We're in a culture where not everybody wants to talk about death, and we're a little scared of it, right? So I can at least help facilitate those conversations so that people can feel comfortable talking to their family about what they want. Because again, everybody deserves the death that they want, right? I could preach about that all day. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. There's obviously, like I said, sky's the limit. The word doula is an ancient Greek word meaning, a woman to serve. So my job is to serve the dying person and their family to do whatever it is they need. Obviously, we're going to put limits on things. Like I said, I'm not a nurse, so I can't administer medicine, things like that. And I can't give medical advice. I might help out with laundry, but if they're going to start asking obscure things from me, I'm probably going to have to say no to that. I have things pretty well spelled out in my agreements and in my pricing packages I give to people as far as what I do and what I don't do. So it's usually agreed upon well ahead of time. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of my job as an end-of-life doula. I know, like I said, I'm also a grief coach, so I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I don't have those degrees. It's very much like a life coach, only to help people work through grief. So that's a skill set I wanted to take on as well to help not just to help out family members after the person has passed, but also to help out the dying, just to have those skill sets in hand, but also just to work with people grieving long after somebody has died. So, I have services outside of doula work with just grief processing. So that's me personally. And I've known of a lot of the doulas I've met and talked to. It's fascinating. I feel like a bulk of the doulas I have met, end-of-life doulas, come from a nursing background or a hospice background. There are very few of us that have come from a corporate America background who've just had that midlife crisis and decided I need to do something else. There are more than just me, though. There's a few of us out there. But a lot of people have that nursing background, which I imagine would be both a great idea and a bad idea because, again, you don't want to start crossing jobs. But for, say, a hospice nurse to have a little bit of knowledge and training on things that doulas do can only help, right? But again, you have to have that definitive line of, are you hiring me as a nurse or are you hiring me as a doula? I'm sure there are people out there that try to do both. I would never try to do both. And me being the person I am, I would much rather do the doula work than the nursing work because that's just who I am as a person. But also being a doula, if you have that nursing skill set, again, you'd have to put that line in of what you can and can't do, but at least having that knowledge could be helpful in some situations. But yeah, and I've met so many doulas with all sorts of backgrounds, a lot of them in hospice, a lot of them in nursing, but every background can be helpful somewhere, right? I have a background in theater and I've been trained in expressing emotions, right? So I don't know when and where that might come into play, but I at least have those skill sets. I also have a long history with improv comedy. And honestly, I put improv on my professional resume because it shows that I know how to think on my feet and process things quickly when I need to, right? So I hope that answered some of your questions. I know this is a slightly shorter episode, but I thought it would be useful for you guys to hear about this. If you have more specific questions or you want to talk to me about doula work or training or any of that, please feel free to reach out through my website, nikkithedeathdoula.com. I have had plenty of people find me through Anelda's website and send me a message. I'm really interested in this doula thing. And, I'm happy to answer questions where I can. So please feel free to reach out. So that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Don't forget to, subscribe on whatever platform, follow, leave comments. Ratings would be awesome. Ratings are good. Helps me get found. And yeah, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful week and I'll see you next time. And always remember, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. Thank you. Good Grief was brought to you by me. You can find me online at nikkithedeathdoula.com. Today's episode was produced by me. Research and scripts written by me. Your host is me. Editing and sound design also me. Music is not me. Music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. License information can be found at filmmusic.io/standard-license. Special thank you to my best friend and husband for constantly reassuring me that I don't suck.